Hello and welcome back to Modern Jubilees. It is now summertime. It is officially Pride Month, which is an interesting thing to look into for a moment. Pride is one of the 7 deadly sins in Christianity. Homosexuality, the act of it, is a sin according to the Bible, as is transgenderism, a man dressing as a woman dressing as a man. The idea of pretending to be one of the genders that you're not is also outright forbidden in the Bible. So the fact that this pride has become a thing has been very interesting. And then the defeat of pride is essentially what we're seeing now under Trump, where the fall of pride is occurring and less are corporate companies likely to shove down someone's face the idea that homosexuality is excellent, it's so wonderful, shout your sins from the rooftops, and all that. Of course, there are people who do all these things and lead normal lives, and you would never know that in their private lives they do any of these things, just like nobody knows what goes on in the private lives of anyone. And that's what it is to be part of civilization. It's that everyone has a home life, a private life, but then they have a public life. But the idea of taking sins of the private life and turning it into some sort of celebration in the public life is weird, and so it's been a bit weird. In a related topic, the rainbow flag in general, I want to take a moment to chat about, because the rainbow has always been a universal symbol, completely universal, because it is a symbol that God gives to humanity after God saves Noah and his family from the flood. And Noah and his family rebuild humanity and civilization after that. They're each given portions of land to go to. Each of the 3 sons are given portions of land to go to and to inherit. The children and grandchildren are given land to inherit. God gives a book of healing remedies to humanity. These family members are now all experts in boats, and so they go west, discover the Western world at some point, discover all around what becomes the Roman Empire, the area that connects between Europe, Asia, and Africa, and beyond that, all the way to the corners of the world, to Australia, etc. And so humanity begins at this point when it's after the flood, and the rainbow is given to humanity. But what is the symbol of the rainbow? Let's look inside. God says, "I have set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be for a token of a covenant between me and the earth. Et kashti natati ba'anan, I put my rainbow in the cloud, v'hayta le'ot brit, and it should be a symbol, a covenant. Beini uvein ha'aretz, between me, God is saying, and between the land. V'haya be'anani anan ala ha'aretz, it shall come to pass when I bring a cloud over the earth, that the bow shall be seen in the cloud." V'haya be'anani anan is actually super interesting. When in my cloud there is a cloud on the land, that's when you see the rainbow. Okay, so some sort of mysterious event. We know that it has something to do with when there's rain, and then there's sun, and it goes through the cloud. I will remember this covenant that I made between me and you, and in every living spirit, every flesh, basically, it's a covenant, it's a reminder, it's a symbol that there will never again be a flood, l'shachet kol basar, that destroys all of humanity, all of the flesh, all the people and the animals. V'hayta keshet be'anan, when the rainbow appears in the cloud, uri'itia, and you see it, lizkor brit olam, remember this covenant that is forever. I will remember it, you remember it, bein Elohim uvein kol nefesh chaya, between God and every living thing, every living spirit, bekol basar, that is in every flesh, asher ala haaretz, that is on the land. And so this rainbow actually symbolizes God's covenant, that God will no longer destroy the earth because of mankind's sinning. And so the rainbow actually has long been, in Jewish thought, a symbol that humanity is not doing good, that humanity is doing wrong, that we are sinning. And so God is reminding us that we should remember this covenant. Look, I made a promise I won't destroy the earth ever again, but please correct yourself. And so it becomes this symbol. Like, when does the rainbow come out to remind us this? Specifically when we're sinning, when we're not doing good. And so the rainbow has been long associated with sins of mankind. And the rainbow is meant to remind us of this covenant that God made between God and Noah and Noah's children and all of humanity forever. And so the rainbow is a universal symbol. And it is a symbol that reminds us also of the Bible, of the biblical story of our ancestors, of the forefathers, of the stories of the Bible, of our faiths, and connects us to God. And so this idea of taking the rainbow and turning it into this symbol of sin without the connection to God, severing the rainbow from God, severing the rainbow from the Bible, severing the rainbow from this covenant that the rainbow has always represented for thousands and thousands of years, this is probably intentional. This was probably intentionally done as part of who knows what, maybe Soviet propaganda that tries to disassociate humanity from God and the Bible in order to make us weak, in order to make us divided, and in order to conquer us. And this idea needs to be called out and understood. The rainbow does not represent LGBTQIA plus minus divided by sign, as people say. None of that. That's not what the rainbow represents. The rainbow represents what it says in Genesis 9:13 through 16. That's what it represents. That's what it's about. God is saying that he will establish this covenant, that never again there will be a flood, and it talks about this a lot. I'm just talking about an excerpt here. All right, that's the first thing. Now, as we move towards rainbows, as we're talking about the rainbow of colors that exists in this world, let's also talk for a moment about shades of skin, which is like somehow this enormous topic these days all over, especially in the United States. This idea that skin color matters so much. And what reminds me of this? These comments I've been getting. Let's read some. And it's funny because everything has an opposite, right? There's white supremacy, there's black supremacy, both exist. Okay, so this is a comment on a short about King David. Why do they pick every race but the black people who were the actual Israelites? I don't get it. You took hip hop, rap, and every Bible story of the black people. And this is wild because my ancestors, Jews, Israelites, have painstakingly preserved the Hebrew language, the Bible, the Hebrew texts, the texts of the ancients. That's how we have these texts, because people preserved them. Okay, even if you want to say, oh no, I study the Bible that is from the Septuagint. Okay, that didn't happen until around 2,000 years ago. That's nothing compared to Jewish history, which goes back 3,500, 4,000 years. The idea that the black people, meaning the idea that African Americans or blacks, that they are the true Israelites, then why did my ancestors preserve all of the texts and your ancestors have none of the texts? And while I do feel for people who are descendants of slaves, as are all Jews, this idea of saying, no, we're the only Israelites and you guys are the imposters who just made everything up makes no sense. None of it makes sense. And it's so militant. It's so militant. The image, everything about these comments are militant. And this isn't the first time getting them. But there's this idea that no, only the blacks are the true Israelites and the Jews or every other group that associates as a tribe of Israel and descendants of the tribes of Israel are just making it up. No, that's not reality. That's not true. That's not right. That's not righteous. And it's such hubris to say like, oh no, only my group is the true descendant. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Israel, Jacob, lived thousands of years ago. He had many, many descendants. The 12 tribes had many, many descendants. The Assyrian exile led many, many descendants, especially of the 10 tribes, away. And their descendants include groups like the Pashtuns, who can trace their origins back to the different tribes that come from Rabbani, Shinwari, Yusufzai. Yusufzai is a huge tribe, and they are descendants of Yosef. That's what they believe. That's their tradition. And I have no reason to believe otherwise. And so the Yosefzai and the Pashtuns, most of them are tribes of Israel. I have no problem with that. If there are African Americans who descended from, for example, the Lemba tribes in Africa, or tribes that have some idea of their Jewish history, then fine, that's great. There are many tribes that are reconnecting with Israel. But the idea that someone's going to come here, the hubris, that they're going to come here with their translations of translations of translations of my ancient Hebrew texts and say, no, I'm the true Israelites, is actually insane. I didn't take anything from you. I took no hip hop, I took no rap, and I took no biblical stories of black people, because that's a ridiculous thing to say. Now, if we look at maps of the colors of the skin of people according to where they are in the world, the skin, okay, and we need to talk about this. It's awkward and weird, and it's a little bit dark, especially for people who have studied the Holocaust, right? Where in the Holocaust, the Nazis believed that only the Aryans were the good race and that everyone else was subhuman and needed to be destroyed. They were using the Muslims to destroy the Jews in order to then eventually destroy the Muslims. They believed that only Aryans had a right to exist and should conquer everything. But if you look at, like, naturally, people from around Greece or people from the Mediterranean area, they have the color skin that Jews have. And if you've never met a Jew or been near a Jew, you wouldn't really get it. But there are fair color skins that are very pale, and they have a reddish hue. This is the European Japhethites. They developed a lighter skin because they spent a lot of time, thousands of years, in areas where it's mostly cloudy and cold. And so they don't get much sun, and so they are inside a lot and covering up altogether, and their skin has become very, very light and thin, and it has a reddish hue. They burn in the sun. If you take them to the Middle East, they're going to burn pretty bad unless they're really taking care of their skin and covering up. But the Middle Eastern people, like Jews, if you actually compare the skin, it's much darker and it tans very easily and it's green. If you put the skin of Middle Eastern people, like Northern Arabs, by the way, these Muslims that are in these areas that I have spent a lot of time with, they have the exact same color skin as I do, as Jews do, because they're from the same general area. Arabia, essentially, Northern Arabia. So Northern Arabia, Turkey, Greece, some areas of Greece, North Africa sometimes. It's the same idea. So it's olive, okay? So if you put a Jewish person next to someone from Europe, their skin looks green and the European skin looks pink. Of course, there is intermarriage at times, but generally speaking, this is the reality. When it comes to black people, like real Africans that are very dark skinned, because you have also Ethiopian Jews who have a lighter brown skin because they spent a lot of time in Ethiopia, thousands of years. And yes, the skin changes and becomes more and more dark or more and more light over thousands of years. That is the entire story of evolution. Even if you don't believe in the overarching story of evolution, there is such a thing as selection. So what we have is, cats, right? Cats became smaller and smaller. They're less and less of a threat. Now we can domesticate them. And the smaller cats are much more prevalent than the larger cats who have largely not made it. And so they developed and became, through selection, more and more small. And the same idea overarching for the skin. If you had extremely light skin in deep in Africa, you would burn and probably get skin cancer and not make it. So there's this idea that we adapt to our environment and the strong do survive. So this idea of that there's only black people who are Jews is insane. I think I spent enough time on that. Then there's another comment from this same person. Israelites are born of Jacob. True. We do not have the ability to show or have fear. So this is all so weird, militant stuff. This must be the Farrakhan kind of people. It's always very clear when these kinds of people come through because they spew such insanity. There's no such thing as a human being who doesn't show or have fear. That is not normal. If you speak to the bravest people on this planet, they will still tell you that they have fear. Fear is natural and normal, and it is not natural or normal to even pretend that Israelites have no ability to show or have fear. That's just not true. That's just not true at all, and it's weird. It's not human. We are superhumanly strong. Okay, no. If you want to say that blacks are superhumanly strong, then you have my attention because they tend to be larger and bigger and sometimes stronger. Like, there are really strong black people. There are strong everyone, but you can't say that Israelites are superhumanly strong. That's not the story of the Israelites. No. That's not the story. That's why on Chanukah and Purim, we celebrate God's miracles. And Pesach, Passover, we celebrate God's miracles. God is the miracle. God is the one who creates this amazing success story of the Israelites, even though they are not the mightiest, and they are not the greatest, and they are not the most in number. They are not the strongest. But God blessed the Israelites and watches over the Israelites. This is also the idea of why did God choose Mount Sinai to give the Torah to the Israelites? Mount Sinai is not the highest mountain. It is not the greatest mountain. It is not the most beautiful mountain. It is a humble mountain. It is a normal mountain. And God specifically chooses this normal mountain because we don't have to be superhuman. We don't have to not have the ability to show or have fear. That's nuts. This is why you should have hiddered, not a word, a black man who knows how black people are. So this is obviously racist. Okay, this is black supremacy in print. The idea that Israelites are all supposed to be black is false and insane. It's false and insane, and it must be said. And this whole thing is weird. And then we get these other comments from, someone else who's saying, why is this Mexican playing David? The Bible said he was fair-skinned and red-headed. Okay, David is played by an Egyptian in House of David, which I've been posting from in the shorts. Not Mexican, although perhaps there is a similarity in skin color, but not necessarily. Also, there are different features. When you really study how people look, you can tell the difference, of course, between a Middle Eastern person and a Mexican person. They descend from different people in different times. But this idea of like having an issue with the actor is something I've also seen, because the actor's not Jewish, the actor is Egyptian, he's not Israelite. Okay, now this person is upset. Other people are upset he has brown hair when he's called an Admoni. Admoni is the same term that's used for Esav twice in Genesis, and Adom means red, and so Admoni either means reddish-hued kind of skin, ruddy, or red-headed, or some combination of these. And so why is he being played by an Egyptian with dark hair? That's what they decided to do, and that shouldn't really make all the difference. He does look like a normal Israelite person looks. If you go to Israel, you will see people of all colors. Most people are not light skin. Most people are not very, very dark skin. Most people are exactly what you would expect from people in this area where Israel is located. And so this entire conversation about skin is getting a little wild, a little bit wild. There is no supremacy based on the skin color. This is what Martin Luther King Jr. understood very well, that we shouldn't judge people based on the color of their skin, but rather on the content of their character. Now, why was MLK such a big deal? Not because he was a black guy, and not because he was a black guy who spoke nicely. No, not at all. It's because he was a reverend. It's because he was a believer. It's because he was a faithful, beautiful soul who was spiritual, who was religious, who understood respect towards the Jewish people and Israel, the Jewish state, which is the olive tree on which Christianity is grafted, as the Nostra Aetate famously says. And so he was an ally, and Jews marched with black people to get their rights because Jews also didn't have rights for a long time in America. This idea of separating between people based on just the color of their skin is absolute insanity, because there could be someone who looks just like you, but who has a completely different set of life circumstances. And that's what should really matter at the end of the day. People are judged based on their life story and on how they have embraced that life story and what they've done with it and what they've done with their lives. What have we done with our lives? What choices are we making? What are we doing in this world? Are we constantly thinking about how we're victims and everything that was done wrong to us? Because there's so much. There's so much. There's always going to be a lot, and sometimes more than other times, but we could be focusing on that, or we could be focusing on other things like MLK did. MLK was focused on God and on the Bible and on allyship, and that's what we should be focused on too. And that's why I wanted to make this video, just to talk about that. And we started by talking about the rainbow, because the rainbow is this universal symbol of all the colors of the rainbow. All the colors of the rainbow is not about what you do in the bedroom. God forbid. It has nothing to do with that. And this idea of hijacking the rainbow and turning it into this like dirty kind of symbol in the eyes of the faithful and the believers is sad, because the rainbow is a sacred thing that God gave to mankind, and we have the story and it's written out, and we should remember that story, because that story reminds us of what God did when humanity was not doing right. God actually destroyed all of humanity and had us start over. And while God has promised not to do that again, we should remember what is right and what is wrong. And we have the Bible in order to learn about that. And all of us have our weaknesses and all of us have our difficulties and challenges. But that doesn't change what is right and what is wrong, what is good, what is bad, what is true, what is false. This type of black and white understanding is the divine understanding. It's very clear to God what is right and what is wrong. And God makes that very clear to humanity through his prophets, through his messengers, and through the ancient texts that we have passed down, like Genesis, like Jubilees, like all of the holy texts, all of the holy texts that have good things to teach us. And hopefully we can take their messages and heed their messages and their warnings, because we don't need to celebrate sin, certainly not for a month, but not even for a moment. We should not be celebrating sin, and we shouldn't be judging one another based on the colors of our skin. The color of the skin of the actor in House of David, it doesn't matter. His ancestry doesn't matter. He's an actor. That's the whole idea of being an actor. He's acting out David. David was a Judean, descendant of Judah, of the tribe of Israel, living in ancient Judea, in ancient Israel. We have the stories of him in the book of Samuel and other books, but most prominently in the book of Samuel, and we can study that text and learn a lot about it. And the nation of Israel has nothing to do with being a certain skin color or another. It doesn't. It actually has most to do with a spirit and with a respect for God and for the ancient texts and for one another. And so when someone comes and automatically their first thing to do is to try to jump up and scream about how they're the only true Israelite and only true Israelites do this and that and the other, and it has nothing to do with anything. Okay, we have thousands and thousands of pages of ancient texts. And no, it's not correct to say that true Israelites are black and true Israelites don't have fear and true Israelites are so powerful and they're so powerful that they're superhumanly strong. None of this is true. I don't know who's feeding this poison to people, but it is clearly seeping deeply into the American society and needs to be healed. Colors are for painting. Colors are for art. Colors are for beauty. Colors are a blessing. And colors are a reminder of God and God's rainbow. So we should love colors, all the colors, because colors and the blessing of being able to see in color and see art and see one another, the diversity that exists in humanity, it's a blessing. And we should remember that. It's a blessing. What counts is our actions in this world, what we're doing, what we're saying, how we're treating one another, how we're following the laws of God that God makes clear in the ancient texts, such as the Ten Commandments and the Bible and Jubilees. This is what matters, not the external stuff. And again, if someone is filling you with hatred, if your church or your mosque or your school is teaching you to hate people based on their race, religion, ethnicity, color, background, then you're in a bad place and you should run and report them. Honestly, we need to heal this society. The society is sick, and this is the way to do it. We need to, from the inside, call out when this kind of thing occurs, because this is a true sickness. All these things we just covered, these are sicknesses, these are falsities, falsehoods. So again, I hope that this space can be a space for learning and education and study, one with the other together, that we can have conversations on this platform here. We can discuss difficult topics. It's anonymous. People can speak without identifying themselves, but that's why it's so important to speak with ideas and not just speaking over one another or getting mad or angry or defensive, because this is a space for education. Hopefully we can all learn and grow and understand that hatred is wrong. Judging people based on their race or religion is wrong. The Israelites are way beyond any one specific color, although on average we are olive-skinned, which is natural to the region that we are indigenous to. And of course, Israelites feel fear just like other people do. We are human just as everyone else is. And we are not superhumanly strong. That is not one of the characteristics of the Israelites, actually. We are only strong in spirit and because God blesses us. So may God bless everyone listening with tremendous clarity and grace. And may we all grow and learn together and create a society that we would want to live in and raise children within, raise the future generations within, and bring God into, that God would want to dwell among us when we create this beautiful, peaceful, harmonious society that involves people of all colors, the weak and the strong, together. That will be a society worth seeing, and I hope to see that society very soon, that the prophecies may be fulfilled, that we should see a time of great awareness of God and of peace soon in our days. Thank you for listening and for watching. This is Modern Jubilees, and we will see you next time.